Great.
Yeah, I can't believe this is your debut. We'll do a proper debut, like a proper full
okay.
episode with you. So, yeah.
Amazing. Both our
sorted.
debuts.
Exactly, 2 debuts. Okay, well, let's just get cracking then.
Yay!
In that case, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the CAYACast. Today I am joined with Gina. I'm Brad, and then we have 2 guests today. Although Jono is serving as Chef Durant for the day. And our guest that we organized the episode around today is the wonderful Moonga K.
Hello.
Welcome to the CAYACast. Thank you for being
Hi.
here. Let's kick it off. I like the format of how would you like to be introduced? If you had to write your, an MC introducing you as an artist, as a person, how would you like to be introduced? Who do you think you are?
I am many things: an artist, a writer, a doula in training, a creative director, a very sexy man, and
Just the facts.
just a human personification of love.
Beautiful.
Well, that was beautiful, and that's why I like getting people to introduce themselves. We were all at Rocking the Daisies this past weekend, and for all of us, it was the first time watching you live. I think we've all listened to your music in the past, but it was the first time watching you live, and I think I'm going to speak for all of us because we had extensive conversation about it on the weekend. Your set was hands down our favorite performance of the weekend, without a shadow of a doubt. So thank you for blessing us with that. We were so lucky to be at the very front. It was this incredible musical experience for all of us. And after that, I just had to reach out and say, let's talk about that. And I think there's so many things you touch on in your songs, in your performance, in what you talked about that, I want more and more people to know about you as an artist, as a performer, and as a person beyond that. And let's get into it.
Thank you so much for the platform.
Very excited.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just want to say that the photo circulating on Rocking the Daisies Instagram of Brad,
And
Jono, and
Moongas.
Chris, the 3 of them at the front of your set. I'd like to say my hat is in the corner, and I am so upset that they didn't use a wider angle lens. People.
My goodness, we squealed when we saw that.
Oh, jeez.
Gina was legitimately upset.
We just got
very
back
grumpy.
home
no.
from our drive from Rocking the Daisies, and then one of our friends was like, "Guys, you're in a photo like at Moonga's set," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, let me see." And I wasn't in. I just left.
Oh no! And I saw that through Jono's. That's the first time that I saw it. That's cool. I'm sorry about that.
She just walked away. She
Gotta
was like,
write a
"No."
strongly worded email to the photographer, whoever they are.
I mean, yeah, your set was for those who didn't see it, for those who weren't at Daisies. You missed out. Shame, unlucky. Cuck one for you. For me, like viscerally, the visual, your band was spectacular. The flow of the show, everything was just absolutely world class. I actually bumped into Mike yesterday.
Yes, one of my besties.
Skated past the cafe, and I was like, "Hey, Mike," and we were just talking about Daisies, and obviously he performed a verse in your set as well, PH Fat, which was
knows who the random Mike
which
is.
was amazing, shame which was amazing, and we were chatting about your set as well, and he was like, "Wasn't it just like absolutely world class?"
Oh.
And I can only agree with that. And when it's verified by someone like Mr. PH Fat himself, it's it was this incredible visceral experience of love came across so deeply, and expression and realness and positivity. What is the core thing that you want people to take away from your music and hearing your songs?
Is just to know that their voices are amplified and that they will always have a safe home with me. Because, and I say this very not to gain sympathy or whatever, because I've grown and I've evolved and I'm healing. I didn't really have much representation growing up, and there weren't a lot of safe spaces or artists or creatives that I could relate with or resonate with. And so I realized a couple of years ago that I guess my purpose is to be that representation and to allow, and to foster an environment for safety and for freedom and expression. And that's what I want all of my shows to be, or even if you see me, in person, I just want you to know that, I see you, you're validated, you're loved, you exist, and you're important, because, it's just good to be reminded of that. And my mom definitely reminded me of that a lot. But, there's only so much parenting that can be done to, make you feel fulfilled and alive. And I had to find that myself through very traumatic ways. But, I'm here to keep living and keep breathing and making sure that other folks don't have to go through that.
Amen to that. Excuse me, the Brooks,
We're still
was
still hoarse from. Well, I'm still hoarse from Daisy.
Yeah.
All the screaming.
yeah, my voice is fully still recovering.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's such a beautiful sentiment and comes across so beautifully through your music.
Definitely. I mean, like, as somebody, I don't know all of your music, but it didn't matter. Like, the connection, the energy was there.
Absolutely.
Like, I had the best time.
Yeah.
The best time.
It was
I'm
also
glad.
it was one of those sets where it just never stopped.
Yeah.
There
John,
was
pull your mic closer. Thanks, bud.
There was
Why is it? Oh, it's the wall.
Yeah.
I'll fix it in a
Just sit
second.
up straight.
You continue,
This
John.
is a lesson in posture.
there was just no break. The song would finish and it would be like longer than the original song, and there would be this whole instrumental thing.
Yeah.
Then it would technically be the end of the song,
Yeah.
but the drum's still going, the bass is still going,
Exactly.
and then you say something dope.
Exactly. And what's weird is, like, I mean, firstly, I love sequencing. Sequencing is very important to me. I think having a cohesive, looking at how I create music, having a cohesive body of work is so important. You want the songs to flow into each other. So, and that with performances as well. I grew up on concert DVDs. So, I watched a lot of Janet Jackson, a lot of Destiny's Child, Usher, and all of that. So that idea of just performance and commitment to performance was instilled in me for a very young age. So I'm really grateful that I have a band that gets that, and we all just love each other and have so much synergy. I mean, the fact that, like, someone pointed this out, the fact that, like, I didn't look at them or gave them instructions on what to do. We just felt it. And that's what it's all about. It's about feeling. And I won't lie, we had multiple rehearsals, but we never had a sequence rehearsson. So that performance, so literally, so that performance, and the thing is, the guys are gonna watch this and be like, yeah, we're gonna get annoyed again, because I kept telling them, can we rehearse the whole 45-minute set? And they were like, no, we have to fix this one song or this one song. So the actual performance itself was the first time we did the entire
crazy.
set in one go.
Ways that is ridiculous.
I have no idea. I think it was just, sometimes those moments just happen,
shit.
And so I'm grateful, because I won't lie, I was freaking out before going on stage. I was like, guys, we've never done a full run through of the set. How is it gonna go down? And even the talking in between, because I don't rehearse that. It's just and to my own detriment most times, because I talk a lot, and so I didn't. That was purely non-scripted. I was just talking from my chest, and I'm glad that I didn't offend anyone.
I was telling all my friends, we were watching it, and I was like, see, this guy's so professional. It's so scripted, but it's so well done. Everything is rehearsed.
We were talking about it. It was like, it flows so well, but it doesn't come across as rehearsed.
exactly.
It's like so
Not at all.
beautifully.
Not at all. Because my band also, sometimes I say the weirdest things, and they just look at me. They're like, on stage, they'll be like,
Yeah.
"What?" Like the
That
one
came out wrong.
the one point where I was like, yo, if you're an LGBT, come holla. Like, that was just from my head. I just looked at the beautiful people out in the audience, and I was like, let me shoot my shot. I'm on stage. Why
Yeah.
not? This is
John
this
and
is
I
life
was-
Tinder for me. Like, this is life Tinder for me. Let's do it,
Well, it's worked well. Clearly.
So I mean, I love that, and I mean that's what I hope to take in future, especially 2023 is looking like touring Europe and the UK, and so I'm very excited about that. And just doing more festivals. This was basically kind of, I won't say the last performance that I'm doing an essay, but kind of like the chapter is closing, and I am moving on
The one on
to other
Saturday.
journeys. Yeah.
Well,
Like,
we'll just.
Well,
You just
How long has your
broken
friend
some
been
hearts.
I
so
know,
I
I
hope
know,
you know.
I know, and I've been having this conversation, with personal friends and people in the industry. But I think my chapter here is closed, and I'm so grateful for all of the opportunities that I've had. But I'm really just excited to just explore the world and travel. I've always wanted to travel, and I'm glad that it's taken this long, because before, and I think a lot of musicians might relate, or creatives that just want to get out, is that it takes time. And you have to, I learned I had to build a foundation, firstly here, And, you know, my publishers are based in the UK, and forming those connections with folks that I've been writing for and connecting with on a, you know, remote basis has made it so much easier for me to make the move happen. I'm not sure when it will happen, but I will say that I'm, you know, putting in the work to make it happen. And yeah, I just think it's time to get out there.
But you will come back.
No comment. No, of course I will.
Okay,
Of
good.
course I will.
Chapter is ending, but we're
South
hoping.
Africa's, you know, it's. I speak about it now as well as when I moved here, I quit music, so I hadn't done music for 2 years.
Oh wow.
I moved here to study,
Okay.
and so I was studying like criminology.
Very wow.
Wild. We're getting into
undergrad,
this.
but I failed that. My parents only found out later on. Well, after I graduated, switched my majors and did a double major in journalism and sociology, and my postgrad in social justice. And I loved that, you know. And at the time when I quit, I was in Botswana. Life was lifing, and I was just extremely depressed. And I was like, I just want to go be an investigative journalist and, you know, be a lecturer or something like that. And I quit music, didn't write, didn't perform, nothing for 2 years.
Wow.
And obviously I was miserable. And it took volunteering at music festivals. You know, I think the best band that I played for, but that I worked for, was Mikasa. They were the nicest folks ever. And, you know, just being able to work with artists and seeing the behind the scenes of how a festival comes to life and how much work goes into that just made me so inspired and made me want to get back into music. And I'm glad that I took that, what now we're calling a break, even though at the time I was telling everybody in my life, I quit, I'm not singing ever again. And they were like, you crazy. But, you know, I needed to be recharged and re-energized. And that was the beginning of me finding myself as an artist today. And I'm grateful for that experience. I do advise anybody that goes through, because the music industry, well, I didn't experience what the music industry that I'm experiencing now. I was just a scared teenage boy that did not know what he was doing with his life. And I was suicidal and depressed. And, you know, I just needed a change of environment. I needed to find my tribe. I needed to find myself. And so one thing that I will always forever say is I owe that to South Africa, finding myself and finding the people that love me for me and accept me for me, and finding my love for music again. And even further than that, knowing that I can be way more than a musician has been the biggest blessing. So I owe a lot.
I mean, you've certainly made an impact on the South African music industry. I mean, the fact, I can't believe you played that set and that and then you're just going, no, I'm going to Europe now.
I'm glad you
Bye.
saw it, though,
Any
Dan.
new fans? Yeah, I mean,
I was like, y'all get to see
like,
before the Europeans do.
the glad and sad part of it is like, what a spectacular and what a way to end your chapter in South Africa for now.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've made a very tangible impact on the industry. You have won a SAMA. I
No,
believe
it was
you were
nominated
for a SAMA.
nominated, which again is still so surreal. Like that was my first SAMA, and I was just like, what am I doing here? You know, it's just that imposter syndrome that is just ridiculous. But I also know that it was so deserved. I worked so hard on that project, which is, you know, what's fascinating about that project, just a little tidbit candid, that I worked on with Greg Abrams, one of my best friends and a phenomenal artist and producer. I remember it was 2020, it was lockdown, and flights were so expensive. And I think we were on like, what did we call them? Levels. Levels
Yeah.
4,
Stage
level 5?
level? Oh no, stages for load shedding.
Yeah,
We were on
that's-
levels was for lockdown.
The
Yes,
levels.
yeah.
And I remember it was the level where flights came back, but they were just so astronomically high. And so I was like, no, I'm going to take a bus. And the last time I took a bus, I was like 12. So I took my one of my friends, Tony, and we took this 22-hour bus drive to Cape Town. And Greg and I got into studio for 3 days. And initially, Candid was supposed to be an album. We wrote 8 songs in 3 days and, you know, spent the couple of months of 2021, you know, honing the sound and figuring out what we wanted to do, and cut it down to 6 tracks. And, you know, it just felt like the right body of work to really not reintroduce myself because I was still doing music, but, you know, it was the first project that I worked on solely with one producer and, you know, wrote the songs and vocal produced as well, and just had, you know, it was also the quickest project I've ever made in my life. I'm lying. I wrote my last release I wrote all those songs in one day on New Year's Day this year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, while all you were healing your hangovers, I was locked in studio writing. But again, it took that process of candid. Like I say this a lot to folks. I never used to write as fast as I do now. Like I write like 10 songs a day, which is a muscle memory that I've developed. But, before it just takes practice and it takes honing that skill and also writing for other artists and being open to criticism and learning and feedback and all of that. So I know this was a very long answer to the question that you're still going to ask, but shout out to, the psalmist for recognizing that body of work, for a best engineered album as well. Like that category means that they actually took the time to listen and heard how much love and hard work that we put into that project. Exactly. So grateful. I won't talk about the experience because I did not have a pleasant experience, but it was what it was.
I really want to talk about the experience.
We'll talk about it off camera. I will just say the trauma was had, but it was my first award ceremony, so I'm still grateful and honored to have been a part of it.
Okay, well, we will talk about that once the cameras are off. You touched on, and it's something that's very much becoming a strong recurring theme within this CAYACast, and it's something that I want to keep talking about and keep going into.
Yeah,
is the imposter syndrome. Almost every podcast we've done here, we overwhelmingly focus on the creative industry and on creatives and professional creatives. Almost every episode, talk to people and they're like, yeah, no, I'm still dealing with the imposter syndrome. Yeah. It's a huge imposter syndrome thing. Why, do I belong here? Why do I deserve to be here? And I mean, you said it as well. And I think it's so important that we talk about it, because for the young artist who is where you were 5 years ago, or is where you were, when you felt you needed to take that break, or for whatever reason, it's so important for people to see that, the artists who, were playing on main stage at Rocking the Daisies and who have been nominated for a SAMA still get imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And it's a very real thing. But for me, the value of that conversation is, hey guys, the guys that you think belong, that you're worried about feeling imposted from, feel the same thing.
Yeah.
And so if you think they belong, but they feel it as well, surely that's a way to mentally shift yourself and go, oh, it's just imposter syndrome. It's not a real thing of me not belonging. It's just something that we all share.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need to just talk about it and be open about it. And
absolutely.
The question I've been asking people, because I really like it, is rather than trying to tell yourself how to deal with that, or your advice or what your experience, what would you tell another young artist who's struggling with self-belief and struggling to believe that they can make it, or they deserve it, or they deserve their spot? What would you tell them?
Yeah, it's also onto that. I've been mentoring a couple of young artists for the past year and a half, and teaching them songwriting and performing, which is a huge blessing. And they're like little siblings to me, so I'm very protective over them. The number one thing that I tell every single person, or would tell every single artist, is don't compare yourself to anybody. I've struggled with that so many times, and I think specifically in the lockdown as well, when everything stopped, and I had just finished this project that I wanted to release, and then the whole industry was changing, the dynamics were changing, and streaming was still becoming a huge thing here. So having compared myself to streaming numbers, and I will speak about this in a bit with regards to like Spotify and everything, because firstly, numbers don't matter. They really don't, because they don't pay us enough anyway.
It doesn't make a difference.
But we'll speak on that in a bit. But I spent the first couple of months in lockdown looking at other artists that were thriving in the lockdown and comparing my numbers to them, or comparing their fan base to mine. And it put me in a spiral. And I was definitely not treating myself well and not giving myself grace, which I think that we need to be able to do, is just know that every single artist, and I say this as well as people, are meant to be here. Every journey is different. Everything that you give out into the world is different. I know that I am, an artist that does whatever, and I can't, the next artist can't do that. I mean, let's talk about like Mike, PH Fat, He is a phenomenal artist in his own, and I was a fan of him before, I became one of his he became one of my closest friends, and I was inspired by him as a performer. I did not, like, when I was watching him perform, I did not have that confidence to perform like that, and I was like, I want to be like that, I want to have that energy and charisma and all of that. And again, it's just doing yourself a disservice, because that is his journey. And that is his output into the world, and that is his gift that is not similar to mine. And that doesn't discredit him or discredit me. It just means that the world is full of dynamic, beautiful people that have so much to offer and so much to learn from. And again, there's so many layers to imposter syndrome. I think the number one thing is also just, well, I guess for me, my experience in the industry has been quite abusive in the sense where I have had to fight and I'm still fighting to be heard, to be valued, to be seen as worthy, which unfortunately is just, upsetting. But it's how the game is, and I've learned to accept that, and I've learned to just be the rebel in that. And sometimes, you'll fall down and you'll falter and you'll be like, I've quit multiple times. Even the day of Daisies, I was like, I'm quitting. And Mike was like, shut up.
Like, no, the fuck
shut, no, not at all. And I was like,
contractually.
Exactly. But it's the anxieties. And, Eartha Kitt said it in an interview, in her time when she was alive, that, creatives, we are sensitive beings. We are so in tune with our emotions compared to most folks. And so everything that we do it with passion, and we address it with passion, and, because we care and we want this, and this is our life, and this is what makes us happy. This is what makes us feel like we have a right to live and alive, and that's what it was for me. Performing makes me feel alive, and writing music and, working with other folks. And just, it's a confidence thing, I will say. I did not have, when I got back into the music industry, I did not have any confidence. I was broken. I was scared. And thankfully I had, guidance from really wonderful industry folks, but also I did have many experiences with people that took advantage of me and, only saw the monetary aspect or the social aspect or whatever commodification, was a part of that conversation. Because at the end of the day, this is a business. And I hated being told that, but it's the reality of the situation. But as much as it's a business, you can still have fun and you can still live your best life. And I surround myself with people that keep me grounded and that I can have fun with, and that I know that, this is, if I fall down or if I'm in a depressive episode, I can always count on them to lift me up as I do with them. And that is what I think I would tell anybody that struggles with imposter syndrome. It has to leave eventually. I'm hoping that it leaves me and rids me of the misery that it brings. But I will say that I'm a lot more confident than I was in, I guess, lockdown or, pre-pandemic.
And as you should be. And I think the way you touched on the business side of it and people, I mean, there's so many beautiful things about the music industry that we have in this country, and there's so many incredible people that we all know and love in the industry, but it is a business. And I think a lot of it's one of the factors that limits the growth of the local music industry is that people don't treat it enough as a business, especially artists. But then at the same time, you have the guys who are really in the thick of the business who are then being abusive and taking advantage of artists, and then it scares people away from the business.
Absolutely.
And it just made me think, as I was looking at you, hearing that capitalism doesn't love you.
Oh yeah.
Amen to that. And I think that's something that people don't understand about creators, professional creators, is that you're in a job that is you putting your heart and soul out to the world, but it's also your job and it's also your business. And without, I feel without experiencing that, it's very, very hard for people to understand.
Absolutely.
How that,
and I mean,
works.
Like I said, I don't wish any of my experiences. I say this a lot to the artists that I mentor. I'm really, my purpose is to make sure that going forward, the industry is safer for them and they don't have to go through the experiences that I went through. But also, number one thing, like what you touched on the business aspect, is something that I also had to really teach myself during the lockdown was just my rights as an artist. Pre-pandemic, I would be in sessions and I'd hear, these producers or execs would throw around the word master rights or publishing, and, they wouldn't break it down for me. So I'm getting these contracts or agreements with these big words or words that haven't been explained to me that I'm not very sure of, and I'm young. And so I'm just, thankfully I was smart enough not to sign anything, but just being in those spaces and having to feel compelled to agree to them, that pressure because they've been in the industry longer or they know more or whatever, you have to agree. That was rubbish. And in the lockdown, I just really looked because Google is 2 steps away. So I was like, let me go do my research. I understood my rights for publishing and master rights, which is so different. I realized, because I remember Annette would be like, oh, so what are we doing for splits for masters? And I'd just be like, I don't know what that is, but 100% ownership sounds good for me, you know? And so I was like, I want to split nothing, because I wrote all my stuff. I also, one of my greatest friends, her name's Shinkuzo. She's an incredible songwriter. She's written for Little Mix and all these big pop artists. And, you know, she also has been, well, she's obviously experienced the industry way more than I have in an international sense. But I remember, I'm not very good at producing. I'm still trying to hone that. But she told me that if you are basically dictating what an instrument should play or what, you know, the producer should play, then you are a producer and you deserve a producing credit. And that shocked me so much, because I realized that that's what I do. Like when I'm in sessions, I'm like, I sing the melody of what I want the keys to play or the guitar to play or the strings to play. And I never really thought that was like, oh, that makes you a producer, you know? And even just knowing that power again for me was like, cool. I also know that I deserve a producing credit or a percentage of this and blah, blah, blah. And when I learned what master rights were, and this was especially helpful when I signed my first publishing deal last year, knowing that I owned the rights to all my songs means that I earn all the money and, you know, earn the right to exploit it however I want to. And that's a power, you know? And when I realized that I had that power, I just said, no one can fuck with me.
Yeah.
And no one will, you know?
While we're at it, can you give a brief breakdown of publishing and masters for people who are watching this and might not have as good an understanding? Okay,
so publishing are your royalties, the stuff that you, English, the amount of money that you make from when your songs are streamed or when they're played on radio or when you perform. For example, let's give Daisies. I had a set list, and so...
Yeah? What? Oh, okay, this is art. Sorry, that's loud.
No worries, we'll start it again. Give me one. Don't know why, but I downed it, and that is when. And that is when shit just. I don't remember a damn thing after that. I blame Matthew Mole.
Matthew Mole, you naughty boy. We might actually have him on the podcast.
You should. He's wonderful. He was the second show I ever played in SA was opening up for him, and we've been really good friends since.
He's such a lovely human being.
Oh, he's wonderful. He's wonderful.
Yeah,
we haven't written together, but you know. Hopefully one day.
In time. Yeah.
Also, on Matthew was it was my first time seeing him live. Wonderful kid. We've been speaking since the beginning of the lockdown. I mean, he's reached out a few times, which is, you know, it's because I guess we know the same producers. He's worked with Billy and David, who are wonderful, wonderful people. Yeah. And so I got to see Will. I met him a couple weeks ago. Very tall boy. I did not.
Very tall.
I did not
Everyone
expect.
always goes, "Wow, he's."
No, when he walked in, I was like, I thought you were a baby. What?
It's the baby face.
What? And then
on the tall body.
On the tall body, and then seeing him perform, I loved it. What a beautiful kid. What a beautiful soul. The charisma. And I was saying this to him as well. When I was 21 years old, I was not performing like that.
Oh no!
I did not have the confidence to run all over the stage and connect with the crowd and. You know, have all those little white girls were like, they were head over heels in love with that boy.
Fan club behind us in the audience.
I didn't even go in the audience because I was like, they're going to fight me. I'm not trying to fight with Will's fans. No.
We full on had a group. When I see him next, I'm going to tease him about it. There was full on a group of people behind us doing before he came on, what was it? We love you, Will. We do. We love you. Like that kind of like a school chant.
That's beautiful. I think,
no, it is.
I think that's beautiful. I mean, the power of social media and developing your fan base, you know, it's, he hacked that and I'm so happy for him.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is, you know, often the issue can be someone can just build a career off good social media marketing, but they don't have the talent and the charisma and the skill set to stand up to it.
Absolutely.
And Will is one of those humans who I absolutely do not begrudge the fact that he built his audience on social media. Good for him, because when you put him on stage, that was number 2 for us.
They'll give you a good show.
I think the only reason, I mean, we've seen him perform, so it was. I mean, yours was just this absolute what. But Will just had the crowd wrapped around his little finger.
Yeah.
It was like...
I had shivers throughout the whole thing. And then I got home and I was showing my mom the videos. And I got shivers again. I was like, what is wrong with me?
That's him at 21 in the future. Just give him 5 years.
5 years of performance maturity on him. astronomical. Like, yeah, and what a talent and what an incredibly nice human being. We've had him on the podcast. He was one of our fourth.
Yes,
he was
I watched that
our
one.
fourth episode.
Yeah.
And just so nice and so down to earth. And a lovely human being, as is Matt. And I think the fact that we've got it feels like artists are putting one another on and supporting one another. And Matt, for Will, has been, taking him on tour and supporting him and supporting another young local artist is how we do it.
I mean, and what you're saying, I completely agree with. Is I've always been a supporter of building community. We can't do this alone. I think, in all honesty, folks, and I'm not going to name names, but folks in the industry do not like to be honest about the trials and tribulations of it. And that's one thing about social media that I've never really been a fan of is, like, I'm obviously not going to go and, have a whole therapy session. I have a therapist for that. But if I'm not feeling all right about something, I will share that truth, because this is not as romanticized as people make it out to be. It's hard work. And, you're spending every day trying to show people that you're worth their time and money and support. And at the same time, it's so psychologically taxing. And when you don't have a sense of community, which for me, when I started in the essay industry, I did not have anyone my age that I could speak to. Like I said, I was in an industry with folks like Matthew Mole and PH Fat and all of these folks that had already built a foundation. And, I look now at the industry in essay specifically, and there's this wave of young artists. And I'm saying young like I'm old. I'm still in my 20s. But the industry has aged me in a way that the industry has aged me in a way that, like, I look at them and I'm like, I'm so glad that they have each other and that they should have each other, because this is such it can be so traumatic and it can be so wild. And if you don't have somebody to be able to vent to and to connect with and to just receive counsel from.
And who understands. Because, again, like I said, I'm not saying this for pity. I'm just like, I just didn't have anyone like that in my corner or at my age that I could connect with and say, oh, we're going through the same experiences, And so because of that, I had to internalize a lot and I had to just deal with things myself, which wasn't very pleasant, but it's taught me a lot. And like I said, the fact that I was able to move forward and learn, the differences between publishing and masters and my rights as an artist. And, prior to that, I was booking my own shows. I mean, I had to hustle, and I'm grateful for the experiences, for the learning. I'm not grateful for how taxing it was. Because, if you don't, it really is the sad thing about this industry is if you don't have a team or if you don't have someone that can speak, I guess, on behalf of you, no one takes you seriously. And it only takes really putting yourself out there. For example, like, the performing that I've been doing over the last couple of years is really kind of like, I guess I've forced myself into people's orbits and made them understand that I'm here and I'm not going to stop. Even though I'd be quitting every day. I might say I will, but just don't take it seriously.
Exactly. But I'm compelled, I'm compelled, and I'm glad that, you've got to keep going. Got to keep going, even though it doesn't seem like something's going to happen, But what I will say is I'm grateful to be in a place where music entirely, supports me financially. Like it pays my bills. So that's not, that's not something that a lot of artists can say, unfortunately. And again, for me, it's because I not only write for myself, but I write for other artists and I mentor and, I just don't like to sit still. So I'm able to survive, even though that shouldn't be the end goal of being a creative or being an artist. But that is the beauty and life of being, in a space like this.
Yeah. Amen to that. You've touched on it a few times before, and I know it comes through quite a lot in your music as well. And it's something that I think we need to be talking about more and more, and particularly in the creative industry, because of the things we talked about, of how personal your work is the mental health aspect and the importance of talking about mental health and bringing it into the mainstream more and more, which I think thankfully it really is starting to do, that we're starting to talk about mental health more and more, which is fantastic. But it's something that so few people deal with. It was just a little while ago. It was World Mental Health Awareness Day, and particularly as a man and as a queer man, and there's so much about mental health and masculinity that you know really damages men, and a lot of it is because of masculinity and the perception thereof and toxic masculinity. What is your experience of navigating your masculinity and what that means to you, along with your mental health and the relationship between them being like?
It's very tough. I grew up surrounded by very hyper-masculine men and, you know, very patriarchal views of masculinity that were, you know, I guess coerced onto me by a lot of my peers, by a lot of adult figures, and that contributed to my depression. I got diagnosed with depression when I was 13. And again, at the time, like there was, the language wasn't there. The support wasn't there. The understanding wasn't there. So I was surrounded by folks that were like, go, you can pray it away. Or, you know, Black people don't get mental illnesses and all of that rubbish. And that will really fuck with the way that you perceive yourself. And I had to do a lot of unlearning because I was a very sensitive kid. If you had met me when I was younger, I was a little crybaby. But I had to develop thick skin, you know, and unfortunately at some point I did, you know, portray very hyper-masculine traits just because I wanted to protect myself from any sort of danger. But when I moved to SA, I think it was in my first year of uni, I just wasn't coping mentally. And I remember going to the academic head and I was shaking and I could barely get a word out. And she was just like, cool, I'm going to take you. Thankfully, my university had a mental health center. And she took me to the therapist. And this therapist was a wonderful Black woman that changed my life. And, you know, she was the first actual therapist that listened to me and, you know, validated my experiences. And from there, I was like, cool, I like this therapy thing. And I remember one of the reasons one of the reasons I actually went back into music was to make money to afford therapy. Because therapy is expensive. And my allowance from my parents was not covering that. So that honestly was just so super helpful. But it got too expensive to the point where I was just like, cool, you know, got to stop this. But I was still, I still, you know, from the tools that I learned, I was addressing, like, look, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I've got PTSD, I've got all of these things. I've got to learn how to, you know, heal better. And at the beginning of lockdown, my distributor's platoon had given all of the artists free healthcare, which is so unorthodox for labels or whatever anyone in the music industry to do. And my immune system is fire, so I don't get sick a lot. But I'm mentally ill, so I was like, let's go get therapy.
Unfortunately, the immune system doesn't sort that out.
And so I remember I just did a lot of research because I really wanted to make sure that the first therapist I go to is going to be, you know, a consistent one. I don't want to keep going back and forth like I was doing in my adolescence. And I found this incredible therapist, Milan. I hope he sees this because he's moved to Australia. But he changed my life. We met last year. We had been in therapy for a year and, you know, also started antidepressants because it just got too debilitating at the time. But to have someone that affirmed me, affirmed my masculinity, affirmed my queerness, affirmed my Blackness, even though he was white, but he was so culturally competent, you know, that was so shocking for me to have somebody like that in my corner. And I loved the journeys to, you know, taking the train to, you know, go to therapy and then having the session and having these epiphanies and then going back on the train and reminiscing on the sessions. And again, even another, my publishers, Pure Music, who are so beautiful. I remember the day that we got the Salma nomination, I had a breakdown. I remember my studio team, they took me out for drinks. They're like, yeah, let's celebrate. And my friend Robin, his mom, this wonderful 80-year-old German woman, she bought us all like the champagne and stuff. And she was like, I'm getting you drunk. I was like, you cute. And I don't know, sometimes for me, and I guess a lot of people can relate to this, sometimes one thing you shouldn't do, and I'm very much a problem with this, is mix, you know, alcohol with your meds. And I do that sometimes to my own detriment. And I unfortunately did that and had a bit of an episode where I was like, I think I went on social media. I can't really remember, but I know I went on social media. I was like, guys, I'm so sad. Even though I got this nomination, I'm so sad. And my publishers saw that the morning of. The next morning, they sent me an email. They were like, I thought I was in trouble. Like, we need to have a call. And we had a Zoom call the next hour. And like, they're just so worried. And they're like, what can we do to help you? What resources can we give you?
Oh, wow.
And and they were just like, we want to help you. We love you. We see your talent. We want to make sure that as much as we know that you are working hard, for us, you have the tools and guidance and support you need to make sure that you are good. And I was just like, I'm so glad that I'm, with them, because I know that, a lot of my artist friends don't get that kind of support. And again, it's just, they're not, they should be obliged to do that. Industry folks should be obliged to do that, which I guess now the conversation is changing, or the rhetoric is changing. But I will say that I'm so blessed to have people in my corner that, I don't have to pretend or perform for. If I'm feeling down and out, I can express that, and they're like, cool, take a day off or take a week off. And, I'm grateful for that. Even, I said I was going to speak about this. I got into an accident. What was it, last week? Yeah, it was the Sunday. It was like 5 days before Daisies. I was riding a bicycle by Sea Point, and I was like feeling free, and I was like, yeah, I'm in my indie rom-com era. And I won't lie, I don't remember a thing. All I remember was going.
You were riding, and then
I was riding, and then I woke up in the ER, and woke up in the ER, had a seizure, fractured my left arm, chipped my 2 teeth. So this is fake at the moment because I have to go for a root canal tomorrow. And that was something. And I'm speaking about it now like it's very bad. Like it was very, very bad.
Yeah.
I'm speaking about it so callously, but I've compartmentalized the trauma because I was like, I've got Daisies in 4 days. And like the Daisies team, I told them about it, and they were like, no, we don't think you should do. I was like, no, no way. I'm just going to get bed rest for 3 days, be on these painkillers and relax. And, I'm going to do the show that I've been wanting to do for months. But, like, again, for them to even just be like, they have this huge festival that they're bringing together, and they put in so much money and time and effort for the last 2 years. And they still had the compassion and grace to be like, if you don't want to do it, you shouldn't. And me being me, because I just do whatever I want, I'm a Virgo, I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And then afterwards, the exhaustion had hit me and the trauma had hit me. But I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. This is what I would say. Don't do what I did. If your body is telling you to relax, relax.
But I am so glad you didn't listen to your body. Very selfishly, I'm very glad you didn't listen to your body on that
Absolutely.
moment.
Absolutely. It was the only way that I knew I was going to feel better about the situation. It's just, I've just been through so much trauma and near-death experiences in my life at my young age of 26 that it's like, I'm so tired of fixating on the trauma or fixating on the sadness and the misery. I'm just trying to approach life differently. And I'm like, look, I just want to live in joy. Even though my life could be crumbling, I want to live in joy. And I want to, because I've stressed too much about things, and that's never achieved anything. So I was like, let me try this new approach, see what happens. And I think it's working out. It worked out for the performance.
Amen.
My band was also just shitting themselves because they were like, what if he passes out on? Because I took like 6 painkillers before the performance, and just because my hands were in so much pain, I've got like these bruises and everything. But I was like, fuck it, the show must go on.
Amen to that.
But like I said, don't do that. Don't do that.
Not advised. Do not try this at home.
Don't do that. Don't do that. But, again, I'm so grateful and honored and blessed to have people in my life that in the industry that, they could literally just throw me away because they want to make money or find another artist. But I guess they see the potential in me, and they see that, this is a lifelong journey that I'm about to be a part of. And they want to, not only be a part of that success, but be a part of that story. Because one thing I do know is the HBO series that's going to be made about my life is going to be very spicy.
Amen to that.
I've got to give them that entertainment.
Cheers to that. Cheers to that. Gina, did you?
Yeah, I wanted to ask two things. First of all, who styled you? Because when we were before you started your set, and we were a little bit down on the field, I was like, that purple shoulder cape is calling me. And then the second thing, I just want to know a bit about your band as well, because they were incredible.
Absolutely. So Levi's styled me. They created and designed the outfit for me. Angela Weichel, the head of Levi's Africa, it's so crazy because she was running the Oasis campsite, the pro women, pro LGBT camp. And I remember hearing about it a couple months ago. And I messaged Angela. I was like, "Yo, if you need any volunteers for the campsite, please let me know. I'm playing daisies." And she was like, "I'm gonna make you an outfit." I was like, I wanted to volunteer, but cool. I'm not going to say no to free shit. And so I think it was a 2-month process. We had made mood boards, Angela Weichel, Amy Zama, William Pala, the folks at Levi's in Joburg. And one thing that I will say that I loved the most about Ange is she could see that I struggle with body dysmorphia. And she was just like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to make you love your body, and I'm going to make sure that this is going to be tightly fitted, and you're going to, feel sexy and feel suave. Cause I was shitting it. I remember even just like 2 weeks ago, I was like, Ange, maybe we should like alter. And I know she was saying no because she didn't want to go back to like doing the work, but she was just like, bro, shut up. You're going to look phenomenal in it and, blow everyone away. And, the hard work that they put into designing, firstly, the whole fit is in denim, and what I loved the most, I remember the first fitting that I had, the pants had the lightning on them. And I just started working on my visuals because I did the visuals myself. And I started, we'll get into that. But I don't know if you caught the intro set, the intro overture that we did. There was lightning in the visuals, and I just started creating those, and then got into the fitting the next day, and the lightning was there. I was like, oh my God,
incredible!
How freaking serendipitous is this? And I told it to Ange, and she was like, oh my God, what the hell? And, and then they put the lightning on the crop top jacket, and the mesh blouse, and the what did you call it? The diamantes? I don't know. Diamantes. Yeah. I keep forgetting how to pronounce that because she kept saying that word. She put it all on like the heels, and she was just like, I want to be, because I gave them, what I told them was like, listen guys, I want to be out of my comfort zone, and I want to be super dramatic. And so Andrew was like, cool, gotcha. I'm going to put a cape. And I was like, cool, I want to feel like a superhero, And so it all came together in like parts and layers, and the end result was way better than I expected. And I'm just so grateful for them to, and they also dressed my band. They were styled in their own way. They didn't want to be as flamboyant as I was.
It looked so cool. Just
but they looked comfortable, and they loved their looks. And, my band, my musical directors, John London and Phonics, who played keys and bass, I met them through Instagram a year and a half ago. After the track with PH Fat had dropped, Phonics had hit me up, and he saw it on a playlist. And what's crazy is, and I'm not saying this, condescendingly, but in the message request thing, I'm so glad Instagram has those message request things, because I do get a lot of messages from like producers or like a bunch of folks that are like, I want to work, or I've got beats for you. And I never reply to those because I used to, and it just ended up being a waste of my time. Yeah. And so I just made this decision. I was like, I'm just going to delete those requests. I'm so sorry to anybody that like, I might, but I saw this message from Phonics, and it was the same generic, I found your stuff on a playlist, and I'm a producer and I want to work. And I shit you not, I felt so compelled to say yes, and I accepted it. And he was like, I live in Pretoria. And I was like, ooh, that's far. But again, I feel compelled, and went all the way to Pretoria on the How train, met him. John London was in the session, and they were friends at the time. Oh, they are friends, but they knew each other. And, this is my first time meeting these two people that I know nothing about. And we had this session, and in 4 hours, we made 6 songs. And we just bonded so well. Like it just felt like I was with brothers. And, I eventually found out that they're musicians in their own right. And I was like, hey guys, let's start a band. Let's do this. And FD, my drummer, is a friend I met him through them. And, the 4 of us just came together. I remember our first show was last year, opening up from Saki at the Lyric Theater. And that was our first performance ever. And, we obviously killed it. But I just really realized in that moment that these are the people that I want to spend the rest of my life performing with. And, one thing that I will say is the fact that they just get it. It's just when you meet people that just get it, I don't have to say, I want a chord change here, or a key change here, or an accent here. They just know. And I mean, if even sometimes I guess you'll see me on stage, I don't hide it. I just get so surprised because they just do things differently than what they do from rehearsals. And I'm just like, oh, I'm going to cry right now because that was so dope. And, you know, even me, sometimes I just like, when I hit certain notes on stage, I surprise myself when I surprise them because I'm like, oh, this range is ranging. And I think that's just the beauty of working with them. I'm so grateful for them. I love them so very much. They're so hardworking. They're session musicians in their own right. So if you want to book them, please book them for performances as well. They are my band, and I would be selfish, but folks got to make that money. And I you know, I want them to be able to be as successful as they deserve to be. So, you know, to be able to perform at Daisies with them freaking main stage, I'm still kind of like processing the whole experience because we worked so hard. They put in so much love and time and energy into that, and you know, to be able to, and just did it. You know, I'm very, very happy, and I really want to tour Europe with them. So I'm, you know, figuring that out on my end because doing it as an independent artist as well is so difficult. But
people, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. If you know people in Europe, let's create some hype. Send it to them so that they know that Moonga is coming to Europe soon. I think on that note, unless there's anything else that you want to throw in, or Jono, if there's anything else that you want to throw in. On that note, because it was a beautiful note, we're going to wrap up this episode of the CAYACast. Thank you so much for coming and for sharing and giving of your time and energy to us. It was such a privilege, and we're so grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the people who have watched thus far, those who have listened. Thank you so much for supporting, as always, and supporting all the beautiful creators and talent we have in this city. Make sure you like the episode wherever you are listening or watching it. Subscribe wherever you are. Share some reels we're going to put out. There are so many banger moments to put out as short form, so please share those with your friends. Make sure you go and check out Moonga on Instagram. His Instagram will be linked in the bio below. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you two so much, and have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.
Stunning.
There we go.
Amazing.
Sorry I talk so much, guys.